Welcome into our Cuse.com postgame show. Avin, Riley Underwood here with you. Ailey Weiss in the Dome with Isabel Verajao. What you got, Ailey?
Tonight was your first ever double-double. What was clicking for you?
I just wanted the ball. I just wanted more, and I followed what the coaches told me and what they had been telling me, and I was just listening to them and following what they told me, honestly.
Well, it was working for you on the court because there was a little girl that was behind you after you scored and said, "I want to play like her." How does hearing something like that make you feel?
That's all that's up. Everything sorry. This is all it's all about. This is all it's all about, like playing for these girls and being an example, and back at home in Brazil too. That's all I want to do for her.
Your team and you continue to have a huge impact on the community of Syracuse, so thank you so much and congrats on the win.
Thank you for the support. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Guys, big win for Coach Legetchak and Isabel Verajao in the Dome today over Yale. Let's head back to the studio and see how it all went down.
Thanks, Ailey. Appreciate that conversation with Isabel Verajao. Like she said, that's what it's all about. Seeing her play as good as she did, so impactful. Isabel Verajao had a great performance today, her first career double-double, Riley.
Yeah, career high in rebounds, career high in free throws. She was sinking them today. Really just a great performance in the post from Verajao.
Yeah, she had a phenomenal game, did it all for the Orange, 12 points, and those 6 free throws that she made. Isabel Verajao shoots a little over 50% from the line, but today 75% stepped up in the first half, especially when the Orange went on that 8-0 run to go up 33-20 to end that second quarter and go into the halftime break, and that continued in the second half.
And she came off the bench doing all this too. She didn't start taken out of the starting lineup before this game. Verajao kind of proving her case. Hey, I should be in there.
Yeah, one of the MVPs of the team from today's game. We'll be right back on the Cuse.com post-game report. Avin, Riley Underwood will break down this match between Syracuse and Yale. Don't want to miss it. Syracuse with a big win in the Dome, 78-50, blows out Yale by almost 30 points. Welcome back into our Newhouse studios. Avin, Riley Underwood here with you, breaking down Syracuse's victory over the Yale Bulldogs on our Cuse.com post-game show. A lot of excitement in the Dome today. A lot of excitement last night. The Dome was still rocking today.
It sure was. Crowd a little less, but Syracuse comes up on top with a bigger win by that margin. They dominated today.
Yeah, let's take a look at the highlights from today's contest. Syracuse's 28-point victory over Yale. Kyra Wood kicks things off in the first quarter. Syracuse, that paint play was huge for them in the first half.
The paint play was big, Adam, and we mentioned it at halftime. They really wanted to solidify that paint presence in the second half, and I think they did, especially with Verajao playing well, Wood playing well. They all kind of got out, ran in transition, and got some easy buckets.
Georgia Woolley still led Syracuse in points today, had a very good shooting day, got to that 16-point mark that she's been at for most of the season. Great to see her step up in those moments. Yale, though, in the first half, not going away without a fight. Avery Lee put in that and one, and it was rough for Yale to kick off the second half, mostly due to the dominance of Isabel Verajao.
That was a nice spin move from Verajao, and one thing that stood out to me, Adam, was Syracuse really hammering in the paint. They're usually a really good three-point shooting team. They only shot 8 and they made 1, but that really didn't matter. In this one, Syracuse still winning by 28 points, but it was the scoring in the paint and the scoring off the bench as well to help the Orange.
Isabel Verajao, Sanaya Wilson getting a bucket there. It was the Georgia Woolley show in the second half, but late, the Cuse were not slowing down. Shai Hawkins, the freshman, gets in, and Kira Scott, who got the start for the first time today, true freshman, gets it one there as well. Gives Syracuse their big 28-point win over Yale. Syracuse shot the ball well today from the floor, not so much from three. But the defense, Riley, in the second half has to be what stood out, considering Yale scored 20 in the first half and Syracuse ends up winning this game by almost 30 points.
Yeah, really, in the first quarter especially, the game was pretty neck and neck. Those turnovers were an issue. They limited that, only 6 turnovers for Syracuse in the second half, and they forced 12 from Yale.
Yeah, the turnovers, a big deal in this game. Syracuse and Yale both had 11 in the first half. It wasn't the prettiest form of basketball, you could say, but in the second half, that Syracuse defense, Riley, really tightened up. Like we said, just 20 points from the Bulldogs in the first half, but it was a 13-point difference going to the halftime break. Syracuse pulled away, particularly due to not allowing any three-pointers in that first half, something Syracuse has struggled with so far this season.
Yale not particularly a good three-point shooting team, but they limited that. That wasn't a problem like it usually is for this Syracuse defense. Yale, 4 for 26 from the three-point marker. That's part in play just because Yale not a very good three-point shooting team, but also in part because Syracuse was getting up. They weren't late on all those rotations like we had seen before. They forced some turnovers, they got out and ran, and made some easy buckets for them on the other end.
28 rebounds for the Orange in this one on the defensive boards. Isabel Verjao with a large portion of those. Had a great game today down low for Syracuse, but it was the whole team coming together to really help this squad pull out the victory against a Yale team that just would not quit until very late in the game. A lot of players touched the floor for Syracuse in this one. We mentioned a lot of the players who played down low, and Journey Thompson, the junior transfer from Arizona State. Coach Jack said that she reminds her of her and had a really good game today with the minutes that she got on the floor.
Her production, especially after those first 2 games we saw her in this season, keeps going up and up and up. She was a starter primarily for Arizona State and the Sun Devils last season. Hasn't seen herself in that starting role this season, but she came off the bench. She had a solid game. I like those 6 rebounds in 10 limited minutes.
6 rebounds, 6 points, crashing the board for Syracuse. A couple of free throws to go along with those 2 buckets. And Journey Thompson could be a player for this team that might be getting a few more minutes down the line once Syracuse gets into ACC play. Speaking of which, let's take a look around the nation. Syracuse, a lot of opponents coming up have games today. Duke is beating Columbia 77-61. The Ivy League with not too much success today, Riley, but still some other matchups that Syracuse fans should look forward to around the nation. Which one stands out to you?
Columbia kept it closer than Yale did today. I like that Quinnipiac and Miami game down in Coral Gables starting here at 2:30 Eastern time. I think that's going to be a closer game than many people think. I'm also interested to see how Georgia Tech looks going into ACC play. The Orange face them pretty soon coming up.
They face them pretty soon, a Georgia Tech team that Syracuse beat last year. Syracuse really well in the ACC last year, if you remember, had a really high seed in the NCAA tournament. Let's see if this team can pull some wins together. When we come back, we're going to be taking a look around the hill. All sports on Syracuse's campus, including today's Syracuse's 78-50 win in the Dome. The Bulldogs fall short on their trip to Syracuse, losing to the Orange 78-50 in the Dome. Welcome back into our Newhouse studios for our Cuse.com postgame show. Adam Avin, Riley Underwood here with you, breaking down everything Syracuse and Yale. But first, let's take a look at some of the other sports happening around the hill, starting with Syracuse men's basketball. Coming off a 3-game stretch, 2 losses in Brooklyn, New York, in the Legends Classic, falling to Texas and Texas Tech. But Riley, you could argue those 2 losses were better than that win against Cornell.
Yeah, Syracuse men's basketball played well, better than many were expecting after those first couple of out-of-conference games that were really razor-thin margin victories. In that Texas game, they showed I like that grit they showed, coming back, almost beating the Longhorns, and then you get the win against Cornell. It's always good to get that win back in the Dome.
Always want that in-state rivalry to stay with the Orange. But losing to Texas and Texas Tech, the story was the free throws. Syracuse missing a lot of shots from the charity stripe in those 2 games. And our Nate Cunningham explains to us why free throws matter or don't matter. Find out.
Thanks, guys. Free throws, quote unquote, the easiest shot in all of basketball. All that stands between a player and 1 point is an uncontested attempt just 15 feet from the basket. Shots like that, they should go down every time. Yet amongst all of college men's basketball, 1 in every 4 shots from the charity stripe are missed. And Syracuse men's hoops, they know that all too well. When you take a look at the free throw percentage of all the teams in the ACC, as well as their attempts, you get what you see on your screen. SU has the 3rd worst free throw percentage in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And while it looks like a lot there, the Orange are just 2 points better than Georgia Tech's ACC worst 67%. That ranks 232nd in the country. That poor shooting has head coach Adrian Autry saying just one thing.
You got to make them. You got to make them, and we work at them. And, We got to make them, and we're not. You know, we're leaving so many points on the board.
Syracuse has left nearly 50 points from missed shots at the charity stripe this season. So that should answer that age-old question. Free throws matter. Or do they? Take a look at this next graph. As you move from left to right, you'll see all 352 Division I programs' free throw percentage plotted over the last 4 seasons. As you go up, you'll see winning percentage. The thin black line that shows there is a slight positive correlation, but by just a marginal amount. However, with points scattered everywhere, there isn't much of an impact that efficient free throw shooting affects win rate. Take Gonzaga or Kansas, for example. Both are programs that have shot the ball below average from the free throw line over the past couple of seasons. Yet, they're 2 of the most winning programs in that time. Compare that to Western Illinois or Detroit Mercy, who have some of the best charity stripe percentages, yet win just about 1 in every 5 games. So we go back to that age-old question. Do free throws matter? SU's head coach Adrian Autry says absolutely. The data says not so much. The only thing that will answer that question is time. Because a free throw to put your squad up 1 just 10 seconds into the game, that may mean nothing at all. However, a free throw to put your team up 1 with 10 seconds left in the game can mean something completely different. A person that struggled from the charity stripe for SU and needs to bounce back is J.J. Starling. And Geraldine Paulia breaks down the juniors' recent struggles.
Thanks, Nate. JJ needs to tighten up his free throws and find some consistency in his game. He was strong against Youngstown State, shooting over 60% from the field, nearly 30% from the arc, with 7 rebounds and a season high of 3 turnovers. But just 3 games later against Cornell, he dropped to 18% from the field, missed all of his threes, grabbed 4 rebounds, but had only 1 turnover. Starling went from driving into the paint and knocking down shot after shot in the Youngstown State game to struggling against Cornell, where he couldn't connect from the arc and barely made any of his shots from inside. Against the Big Red, Starling's numbers continued to be inconsistent, causing turnovers in key moments to forcing a turnover, making a positive impact. His overall defensive presence was not felt against Cornell, as he had only 3 defensive rebounds, a significant drop from his 6 against Youngstown State. Starling was always finding himself just a beat behind. In between the 2 home games, Syracuse played Texas Tech in Texas in the Legends Classic in Brooklyn, and Starling's stats again continued to vary. Consistency is key here, and before their next game against Tennessee, Starling needs to focus on shooting consistency, ball security, and decision-making under pressure. If he can sharpen these areas up, he'll be a more consistent and reliable player for the Orange. We'll see on Tuesday if he can make those adjustments. Adam, Riley, back to you.
Geraldine and Nathan, thanks for that. Really appreciate the work that you guys did. Free throws matter. And for Syracuse men's basketball, got a lot of important games coming up where they're going to need to make those free throws. Tennessee, if you remember that game from last year, Dalton Connect and the Volunteers took it to the Orange in Hawaii. This time, it's not in Hawaii, but still going to be a really difficult game.
The ACC SEC Challenge been pretty hyped up. That Volunteer game should be a good one. Going on the road in Knoxville, it's going to be tough. Then you go straight to Indiana to play Notre Dame. Come back home, play Albany, Georgetown, a team that's struggled in years past. It'll be interesting to see how the Hoyas do in the Dome.
Should be exciting for Syracuse men's basketball as they look to pull together some more wins going forward. But we have a lot of sports around campus right now competing to create those wins as well. Let's take a look around the hill at some of the other awesome teams we have on campus that are trying to get back in the win column. Syracuse women's ice hockey falls today to Colgate, the 5th best team in the nation, 3-1. And we have some important ones coming up too in future days, just like Syracuse and Tennessee, Syracuse Notre Dame. But that Syracuse Texas A&M, Riley, those non-conference games for them, if we want to stick with women's basketball, is going to be a big one going forward too. Yeah,
it's hoop season all around. They're doing their own ACC SEC Challenge. The Aggies will be a tough test. Orange haven't had to face a true road game so far this season. That will be interesting to see what they do down at College Station.
Yeah, but you saw it on your screen, maybe the biggest win on that scoreboard and maybe in the Dome in recent history. Syracuse football took down Miami, the 6th best team in the nation last night. Syracuse, just got word, 23 in the AP poll. That's a pretty big deal.
Pretty big deal, 25 in the coaches. So the AP had them slotted ahead. We'll see what the CFP has them pretty soon coming up. But Syracuse getting back ranked. I think that's what a lot of Fran Brown and company players think that's what they deserve after beating a good Hurricanes team.
After the game, Fran Brown said he's getting washed and Syracuse football is back. Our Maria Wainscott tells us more about the Syracuse football win.
Syracuse football delivered a historic performance last night, defeating number 6 Miami 42-38. The victory marked the largest comeback in program history and capped a 9-win regular season for just the second time in the 21st century. Let's break down the highlights and what this win means for Syracuse moving forward. Trailing by 21 points early in the second quarter, the Orange clawed their way back with precision and grit. Kyle McCord threw for 380 yards, eclipsing 4,000 passing yards on the season. His 3 touchdowns included a lightning-fast 75-yard drive to open the second half and tied him for the single-season school touchdown record at 29. Devin Grant's scoop-and-score fumble recovery late in the third quarter gave Syracuse their first lead of the night and set the tone for the final push of the game. First-year head coach Fran Brown reflected on the program's progress while emphasizing his vision for even greater achievements.
Wanted to win a national championship, wanted to go to the conference championship. Those 2 things didn't happen, but I guess it's progress. But, I wanted to go to a national championship. There was nothing else on my mind.
This win snapped a 25-game losing streak against top 10 opponents and marked the first victory over an 8-win opponent at home since 1992. Under Coach Brown's leadership, Syracuse's 9-win season has set a new standard for success. Looking ahead, while Syracuse didn't qualify for the ACC championship, this win solidified their place as a program on the rise. Several Bull Scouts were in attendance last night, and the Orange proved themselves as strong contenders for a top-tier bowl game. Kyle McCord also reflected on his decision to join Syracuse this season, crediting Coach Brown's trust and vision.
I think everything that he said came true. And, I know I said this last week, but, it's definitely the best decision of my life to come here.
With this victory, the Orange made a powerful statement. The future under Coach Fran Brown looks bright, and Syracuse fans have every reason to be excited for what's next.
Thanks, Maria. A lot of excitement around the Syracuse football program right now. Maria mentioned the bowl games, something that's going to be coming up for Syracuse. They got Clemson into the ACC championship. Miami out now. Their fate still lies in the hands of the college football playoff. But for Syracuse, a lot of exciting options for bowl games. Where do you think Syracuse is going to fall in the mix?
We asked this question a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to stick with my answer. I'm going with the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Fran Brown is he's going to want to get washed if he wins after that mayonnaise bath they give if they win.
Imagine Fran getting dumped on with mayonnaise. Yeah. I don't know how well that's going to go to him.
I don't know. That'd be against a Big Ten team, maybe Iowa. We're thinking they just had a big last-second field goal on Friday to beat Nebraska, who's also bowl eligible for the first time in a while.
All right. Well, I'm not going with mayonnaise. Okay. I'm going with a pastry snack. I'm going with Pop-Tarts. I think Syracuse is going to make the Pop-Tart Bowl. That could be an exciting one. Imagine that mascot, because it's a mascot that is a Pop-Tart. They can eat the mascot.
Right.
Imagine Fran Brown they toast it, right. Imagine Fran Brown taking a bite out of the Pop-Tart mascot. I mean, I think that'd be electric, and that'd be against the Big 12 team. I don't know, maybe a Colorado, maybe a Dion primetime versus Fran Brown. Could be exciting.
Kansas State, Chris Kleiman and company won that against North Carolina State out of the ACC last year in the first ever Pop-Tart Bowl. I like that mascot.
In Florida, and it's not just because I want to go in my home state and see the Orange. But an exciting win last night in the Dome and an exciting one here today between Syracuse and Yale in women's basketball in the JMA Wireless Dome. We got one more chance to talk about this game. Stick around on the Cuse.com postgame show. The Dome was electric. Syracuse 78, taking down Yale 50 points. Weren't able to come up with the win on their road trip, but Syracuse going home feeling good. Adam, Avin, Riley, Underwood here with you in our Newhouse studios for the Cuse.com postgame show. Let's take a look at the upcoming schedule for the Syracuse Orange and what they got coming up. Should be some exciting contests. We've talked about, Riley, the matchup between Syracuse and Notre Dame, a Notre Dame team that fell to Syracuse in the Dome last year. But that Texas A&M one coming up right before a big SEC opponent. Syracuse already took down Missouri in the Emerald Coast Challenge last week over Thanksgiving, but that Texas A&M one in a couple days should be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Syracuse looked pretty good today against Yale. I mean, the almost 30-point win. Can't complain about that, but I think these next two games specifically are going to be big tests. And you can't even overlook Binghamton or Dartmouth either out of the Ivy League. And I mean, Binghamton, you're traveling there. I mean, the New York State opponent.
Yep.
I think those two are not games that should be overlooked because Syracuse has struggled against those out-of-conference opponents.
No, every game matters 100%, and that Notre Dame one, when conference play starts, will be just as important. And because they're finishing up conference play and ACC play not too far behind, Riley, what are your keys for Syracuse women's basketball to end off 2024 on a strong note?
Well, I think ending out 2024 strong is really important for this squad, especially when you're going into the full-fledged Atlantic Coast slate. I say you got to win at least 3 of your next 4 games if you're the Orange, because you want to go into the new year with a good taste in your mouth. Those 2 games, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, I'd like to at least pick up 1. I'd also like the starting lineup to get solidified. I think that's really important if you're Coach Felicia Leggett. Jack, if you're any of those players on the squad, I think that going into the new year, going into ACC play, having that core 5 players solidified, I think that's really important for a successful closeout of the year.
Well, a lot of things to look forward to. What are your final thoughts about this Syracuse women's basketball team, especially after taking down Yale in today's game?
It wasn't the prettiest win, especially at first, but I think the resounding message you get from this game is you finished off strong. I think that's important. You finish off the game strong. You get a big win in the Dome, get back on track. I know the team had been frustrated in the past few games. It's always nice to get a big win.
Syracuse gets the win in the Dome today over the Yale Bulldogs. Our last show from the Newhouse Studios of this school year. Adam, Avin, and Riley Underwood here with you for our producer, Audrey Glynn, and everyone behind the scenes. Thanks for watching. See you next time.